There are two types of people who remodel their patio. The ones who spend money on what looks good in photos, and the ones who spend money on what actually changes how they live in their home. And the difference between the two isn't always the budget. It's knowing exactly what's worth investing in and what's not. Today I'm going to show you 5 things people buy for their patio that are a mistake even if they're expensive, and 5 things that seem like a luxury but that any outdoor designer will tell you are worth absolutely every penny. And I'm going to show you with examples you'll recognize right away, because you've either seen them or you have them in your own patio. Let's start with the mistakes, because understanding what doesn't work is half the battle. I'm going to start with something that's in almost every patio and seems like the safest decision in the world. You walk into a store, you see a full set of outdoor furniture, sofa, armchairs, table, all the same material, the same color, the same style. Everything coordinated, everything perfect. And you think, that's what looks good. That's what looks expensive. And here's the problem. Nate Fox, designer at Foxterra Design, said it straight up in a recent interview. The matchy-matchy approach can feel sterile, and it lacks the character and visual interest that comes from mixing different pieces. And he added something that gets right to the point. A fully neutral outdoor space can feel flat and uninspired. Because what happens with coordinated sets is exactly that. They look great in the catalog. They look great on day one. But in real life, in your actual patio, with your actual house, they look like a showroom. They look like someone bought the whole package without thinking about anything. And that, ironically, is what makes a patio look cheap even though you spent a lot. What actually works is mixing. A table in one material, chairs in another, a sofa with a different silhouette. Abby Williams, designer at Red Door Design Studio in Atlanta, explains it perfectly. I mix modern, clean silhouettes with more textural and traditional designs. That creates an updated feel. And it also lets you combine new pieces with pieces you already have without it looking inconsistent. That's what designers call lived-in luxury. Not catalog perfection, real character. Now, if you remodeled your patio between 2015 and 2022, there's a very high chance everything is gray. Gray furniture, gray floors, gray cushions, gray walls. And at the time it looked modern. It looked contemporary. It looked exactly like everything showing up on Pinterest. But here's what nobody told you when you made those decisions. Kylie M. Interiors, a color consultant with years of experience, documented something that says it all. 3 years ago, 8 out of 10 consultations she got were about gray colors. Today, it's 1 out of 10 on a good day. And her conclusion is straightforward. Cool is out, warm is in. Trends are moving toward warmer tones for the 2026 season. And it's not just an opinion, it's an industry-wide shift. Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, Behr, Pantone. None of them picked a gray as their color of the year in 2025 or 2026. Not one. Sherwin-Williams picked a warm khaki. Benjamin Moore picked an espresso brown. Behr picked a deep ruby red. Pantone picked a warm white. The entire industry is telling you the same thing. Gray has run its course. What actually works is earth tones. Terracotta, olive green, warm beige, cream, rust. Cassandra Rafter, founder of Canyon Creative Studio, summed it up like this. Gray had its moment, and now it just feels cold and emotionally flat. I'm way more interested in neutrals that feel lived in and human. That's exactly what your patio needs to feel like. Lived in, human, not an architecture render. The next mistake is one that hurts because the intention is good. You want fire in your patio. You want that gathering point, that warmth, that atmosphere. And you buy a portable fire pit, stick it in the middle of the patio, and done. Problem solved. But here's what actually happens in reality. Trent Brown, landscape designer, said it clearly. A lot of fire pits are built in spots that look great on paper, but don't work in real life. And the problem isn't the fire pit itself. It's that a fire pit placed without thinking about the flow of the space, the wind direction, the relationship to the seating, it becomes the element that ruins the whole patio instead of the one that defines it. A portable fire pit in the $50 to $500 range doesn't add resale value. Real estate experts describe it as outdoor furniture, not as an investment in the property. Meanwhile, a fire feature that's well integrated into the overall patio design, with seating thought out around it, with materials that complement the rest of the space, has a joy score of 9.7 out of 10. It's one of the elements that generates the most happiness among homeowners out of all the outdoor projects studied. What actually works is thinking of fire as a destination, not an accessory. Legacy Landscapes describes it perfectly. A fire pit should never feel like it was shoved into whatever space was left over. The best fire features are designed as a destination, a place with flow, with purpose, with the kind of comfort that keeps people outside longer than they planned. This is the mistake I come across the most, and it's the one that disappoints people the most after the first summer. The pergola with open beams, with spaced out slats, with climbing plants. It looks incredible in photos. It looks exactly like what you want in your patio. And here's the problem nobody tells you when they're trying to sell it to you. A standard pergola with open slats gives you roughly 30% shade. 30%. That means when the sun is at its peak, 70% of the solar radiation is still hitting you directly. You, your furniture, your cushions. And when it rains, you've got zero protection. Absolutely none. Everything underneath gets just as wet as if there was nothing there at all. So what happens is you built a structure worth thousands of dollars that looks great, but doesn't solve either of the two problems you wanted to solve: the heat and the rain. And the first summer you realize you're still running to cover the furniture every time there are clouds. You still can't use the patio during the hottest hours. The pergola is basically expensive decoration. What actually works is planning the coverage from the start. And the best option on the market right now is Bioclimatic pergola systems with adjustable aluminum louvers. When they're closed, they're completely waterproof. When they're open, they regulate exactly how much light gets in. The temperature difference under a well-installed bioclimatic pergola can be up to 14 degrees Fahrenheit compared to an unshaded area. And modern systems include rain sensors that close the louvers automatically. Your patio protects itself. The last mistake on this list is the most common one, and the one that costs people the most money in the long run. Cheap resin furniture, PVC, plastic that imitates wood or rattan. It looks good in the product photo. In the store, it looks acceptable, and the price makes it seem like a smart decision. But here's the real math. A cheap PVC furniture set at $500 lasts on average 2 to 3 years before the plastic starts cracking, fading, looking exactly like what it is: cheap plastic that couldn't handle the sun. That's between $160 and $250 per year of use. A quality HDPE furniture set, that's the same high-density polyethylene they use to make kayaks and industrial cutting boards, at $1,500 lasts between 15 and 25 years. That's between $60 and $100 per year of use, half the annual cost, with double the minimum lifespan. And natural teak, which is the gold standard in outdoor furniture, can last 50 years with basic maintenance. 50 years. A $2,000 teak table that lasts 50 years costs $40 a year. Less than any cheap plastic you're going to replace every couple of seasons. We already talked about the mistake of the pergola with no coverage. Now let's talk about why the right version is one of the best investments you can make in your outdoor space. An installed bioclimatic pergola system runs between $6,500 and $18,000, depending on the size and features. That sounds like a lot, until you understand what's included. Aluminum louvers that rotate between 0 and 135 degrees. Full coverage when it rains. Light and ventilation control when it's hot. Integrated LED lighting systems. Optional heaters. Rain and wind sensors that adjust the louvers automatically. Control from your phone. And a lifespan of 20 to 30 years. With minimal maintenance because powder-coated aluminum doesn't rust, doesn't rot, doesn't need painting. The global market for bioclimatic pergolas is growing at 8.6% annually. Not because they're a trend, because they solve the real problem with outdoor spaces, the weather. And when your patio has real coverage, you use it all year long, not just when the weather is perfect. Now, this is something that doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money, but it requires thinking it through from the start. And the difference between a patio with defined zones and one without them is the difference between a space you use every day and one you use when you remember it exists. 64% of homeowners aspire to create multifunctional outdoor spaces, and the most sought-after landscape designers in 2025 and 2026 agree on the same thing. The strongest trend coming is intimate, defined spaces. Tara Pierges-Baker, a landscape designer in Nashville, described it like this late last year. The trend that's going to blow up in 2026 is small, intimate spaces.
Think in terms of the word nook. People are really resonating with that. What works is thinking of your patio like an outdoor house, a zone for eating, a zone for sitting and talking, a fire zone, each one with its own flooring, its own lighting, its own scale of furniture. Not everything mixed together in the same space with no order. When you define the zones, the patio feels bigger, more intentional, more expensive, even if you spent the exact same amount. And since we talked about why coordinated sets don't work, let's talk about why smart material mixing is the exact opposite. Teak with aluminum, woven rope with steel frames, concrete with wood. These combinations create what designers call visual depth. And that depth is what makes a space look designed instead of bought. City Furniture documented it in their trends report. One of the most striking trends of the year is the use of mixed materials in outdoor furniture. This trend combines different textures and elements to create unique, eye-catching pieces. And the market backs it up. The wood segment in outdoor furniture is worth $6 billion. Metal is $4.2 billion. Plastic is only $2.4 billion. And it's the one growing the least. This next change is the one that transforms a patio the most for the money it costs. And it's the one most people leave for last or flat out ignore. Well thought out outdoor lighting isn't about putting up lights. It's about creating atmosphere. And the difference between a patio with layered lighting and one with a single light source is the difference between a restaurant you want to keep going back to and an airport cafeteria. The report from the National Association of Landscape Professionals gave landscape lighting the highest joy score of all the outdoor projects studied, 10 out of 10. The average investment is $6,800 with a 59% return, and 41% of homebuyers consider outdoor lighting essential or desirable. What works is 3 layers. Low lights at ground level to define paths and edges, up lights at the base of plants or walls to create shadow and depth, and warm light suspended or integrated into the pergola to soften the space. All at 2700 Kelvin or less. All warm. All intentional.
And we'll wrap up with something that is literally the foundation of everything, your patio floor. And there's a reason outdoor designers are unanimously recommending large format pavers in warm tones, because they completely transform how the space is perceived. Tiles that are 24 by 24 inches or larger create fewer joints, fewer weak points, fewer spots where weeds grow, and they make the space look bigger and cleaner. American Paving Design documented it clearly. Warm neutrals are taking center stage again. Sandstone, cream, taupe, terracotta, aged limestone tones. A well-executed patio recoups up to 95% of its cost. And the HomeLight study with real estate agents found that a mid-scale patio with an average investment of $3,269 returned $3,563 in resale. That's a 109% return. You spend less than you get back. 5 mistakes, 5 investments that are worth it. And the thread that connects all of this is always the same. What makes a patio look expensive isn't how much you spent. It's whether what you bought solves a real problem or just looks good in a photo. Coordinated furniture looks great in the catalog. A pergola with no coverage looks great on Instagram. A fire pit thrown in any corner looks great on day one. But none of those solve how you actually live in that space. And that's the difference between a patio you use every day and one you just look at from inside. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 mistakes you have in your patio right now. And if you've already made one of the investments that are worth it, tell me how it went. See you in the next video.